My hot take is that shopping should be harder. On the one hand, this is not actually a hot take, and I feel like most people in my social circle would actually agree with this. And on the other, this feels like a slightly unhinged thing to say in this particular moment in time when buying basic necessities is a challenge. And there's this really warped dynamic where frivolous shopping is actually a lot easier than essential shopping. And surely amidst all the horrors, I do sometimes deserve to buy myself a little treat. I am actually just talking about the second category of thing here, because sometimes it turns out that the little treats are actually exacerbating the horrors. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last few months and kind of spinning my wheels about it. So I am just going to think out loud, and I very sincerely welcome anyone who wants to poke holes in the thinking out loud that we're going to do here today. Also, I feel like I can generally trust the 8 people that I make videos for, but on the off chance that this breaks containment and you are someone for whom nothing I say applies, then I am so happy for you, or so sad for you. The point is, I don't know your life, and I apologize in advance for failing to speak to the precise details of your specific lived experience. Okay? Okay. Good chat. Thanks to my sewing journey and the ways that I now talk about clothing, I have gotten so many questions over the last few years about fast fashion and how to shop better. Like, how do I tell if my stuff is well made or ethically made or whatever? I try to answer those questions as best I can, but I also always feel like on some level, those questions are missing the point. Backing up a bit, just in case you are completely new to this conversation, though I am going to speed run this a little bit here, the fashion industry is rife with abysmal labor practices and is doing very serious damage to the environment. Human hands made every single article of clothing you made, and often in very poor conditions for very poor wages. We as a society produce far more than we need or use, and your thrift store donations generally wind up getting shipped across the world. This year actually got kicked off with a fire in Kantamanto Market in Ghana. Basically, the piles and piles of donated clothing from the global north wind up in places like Ghana, where it creates still more ecological disaster. I'm going to talk about Aja Barber's Consumed more in just a minute, but for now, I will say that I highly recommend it as a starting point for this conversation if you need it. So this is very aggressive, like TLDR, and the people asking me questions about how to shop better are people who, by and large, have cleared the sort of phase one of, okay, I get that fast fashion is bad for people and the earth and also the quality of stuff that I'm getting. Now what? Friends asking me these questions want to know what labels or fabric details or green certifications or whatever the fuck else will make it so that they can quickly and easily add shit to cart and check out without thinking about it. Like, this one weird trick is how you buy quality clothing that isn't exploiting someone and or destroying the planet. There's like a recognition that Temu and Shein and Amazon are bad, and I might have to spend a little bit more, but the experience itself should still be just as easy. Last month, we read Mood Machine by Liz Pelly for Nonfiction Book Club, and I mentioned this in the live, but there is this bit that has summarized the thing that I've been so fixated on. What Spotify had really done was engineer a frictionless experience, the sense that the music just materialized from thin air. But similar to other app-enabled magic tricks of recent history, such as overnight packages and instant food delivery, frictionlessness is always an illusion. Frictionlessness is always an illusion, and that magic trick is always hiding some significant cost behind the curtain, usually the exploitation of someone and or the planet. The real answer to those questions that I get is that you actually just need to spend more time considering and researching your clothing purchases. There isn't some like secret password hiding on the product page to allow you to skip that step. And if you are someone who is in a position of looking for the convenience hack, you probably also need to just buy a little bit less shit. To be clear, this is all very much about me too. I have a particular relationship with my clothing specifically now that I like make all of it, but I still have a pretty shitty relationship with shopping in general, which is the real reason that I have been obsessing over this so much lately. Each time I get asked a question like this, I start thinking about this bigger idea that there is no shortcut to getting good, ethically made stuff, that the only shortcut is less stuff. And at the same time, I start thinking about the ways in which my own choices, maybe not with clothing, but elsewhere, are out of alignment with my values and beliefs. This really came to a head recently because I have taken up embroidery this year and I started working on this little video project that I may or may not still complete. I have to finish the embroidery, so it's a very long and time-consuming project. And at some point in the process, I realized that I was accidentally kind of sort of making haul content. I bought an embroidery kit that I didn't realize was coming from a dropshipper, and the kit itself is fine, but their business marketing is so disingenuous and it really pisses me off. But what actually pisses me off is that I bought it in the first place. My starting point was basically critiquing a cheap thing that I bought on Amazon years ago, and the place that I wound up was not Amazon, so a small win, I suppose, But still, there was something so frustrating about having this thing drop shipped to me for not cheap when I actually could have just gone to the art supply store 10 minutes from my house, bought all the stuff I need, and then bought a nice digital pattern directly from some artist. Anyway, my embroidery shopping wasn't rooted in a buy less shit mission, but my frustration with this thing I should not have purchased was a good reminder. Mood Machine again. Over time, though, the quest for a frictionless user experience resulted in a deluge of frictionless music, an ease of use that, in turn, facilitated easy listening. So again, she's talking about Spotify and the devaluing of art, but easy online shopping has also facilitated this same relationship with our stuff, which I think the embroidery example kind of highlights. And given how much exploitation, both human and environmentally, goes into the creation of all of this cheap, disposable stuff, that is not great. After we did our Mood Machine live, I decided to reread Consumed by Aja Barber. Here we are, as promised, which I love mostly because it really truly feels like a really good friend is like, hey, bestie, we really got to talk about your shopping. I mentioned it as a good entry-level book, but even as somebody who does think about this stuff kind of a lot, I've reread it a few times now because of the incredibly practical, tactical tone of the book. So, funnily enough, contained within the pages of this very book is the literal experience that I was talking about. Of course, because there's nothing new under the sun, and also Aja is like years ahead of me on the same basic journey, so duh. People always ask me for brand recommendations, but to be honest, that shouldn't be the first thing in the solution toolbox, so much as investigating your consumption all day, every day. We gotta slow this system down, now, immediately. So first, you have to fight the urge to be a consumer, and instead, focus more on being a citizen. And to bring it back to the little treats of it all, the serotonin from the little treats doesn't really hit the same way if I can't trust that the people on the other end of that transaction were being treated fairly. There's this other bit in the next chapter of Consumed. You can't buy yourself ethical. I can't say this enough. You can't really buy your way to being more sustainable. Spending all your money on being the most ethical and the most sustainable is utterly counterproductive and brings us back to the endemic problem, which is that we are programmed to right wrongs as a consumer, not a citizen, when what we need more of is less. In terms of a practical answer to the questions that I sometimes get about how to buy better stuff, Bernadette Banner made a great video recently about identifying quality clothing when you are shopping. It doesn't directly speak to some of the labor or environmental questions in the fashion industry, but like it gets there in a way. It's worth noting that everything she's talking about in that video requires you to actually handle the clothing in person. There's a way in which being much more deliberate about your shopping, requiring yourself to put actual eyes and hands on a garment and like see and inspect its construction before you purchase something. Like there is something about that deliberate approach that does wind you back to some of the ethical questions at hand. There are definitely exceptions, high-end brands with shitty labor practices, but if a brand will cut corners in ways that you, the consumer, can see, you can probably bet that they are cutting corners in other places where you can't. So again, clothing isn't necessarily my particular shopping vice, but there's a related discomfort that I am feeling. For me, personally, this is not a prescriptive thing. I'm not telling you what to do, but my big 2025 thing is trying to break up with online shopping, or at the very least get a lot more selective and careful about how I do it. Like I bought these earrings online, but I bought them directly from the website of the artist who made them. I'm not saying that that always has to be the answer either. I want to be a lot more careful about online shopping, period, point blank. I am fortunate enough to be at most a 20-ish minute drive away from anything I could ever truly need to buy. So obviously many people live in rural places or have disabilities or any number of reasons why different people need different solutions. And I am definitely not saying that all online shopping is bad and that the singular solution here is for all of us to never buy anything online ever again. You can only buy stuff if you can go to the store to buy it. Just to keep punctuating all of my points with quotes, this from the conclusion of Mood Machine. Rather than seek out another fix-all app, we should be honest with ourselves about the reality that this very model fails to meet the needs of most independent artists and listeners, and grapple with the complexity of that. Obviously, Mood Machine is talking about Spotify, and I've been talking about the purchase of physical goods here, but I keep going back to it because I think that a lot of the systems that created Spotify and forces that Spotify has created, that sort of like loop there, I think that all of that stuff really does apply broadly. As I said up top, I don't know your life. I do think that major online retailers are trying to be everything to everyone in a way that is not good. For my part, the thing that I am trying to be very mindful of is interrogating all the places where buying shit has gotten so unbelievably frictionless. that I am missing what things really truly cost. Like these earrings, I waited months to be able to buy them because the one set of hands that was making them could not make and sell them any faster. In the case of the stupid embroidery kit that I wish I hadn't purchased, I was letting the brand's marketing fill in some gaps for me and allow me to make assumptions that I should not have made. This is now a gross oversimplification that I'm about to make, but on some level, I do feel like it should have just been harder for me. The place that I've landed for now is that when I am buying non-essential stuff, I should be making a point of asking myself, does it feel too easy to buy this thing? And what costs is that ease hiding? All of this is complicated, and I do want to reiterate that I don't think that there is a simple one-size-fits-all solution here. I do feel like, for me, I've been trying to keep that simple idea in mind of shopping has gotten too easy. Is there a way that this should be harder? And letting that kind of filter down to other useful questions that I can ask myself. I'm going to cut myself off there, but I obviously can keep talking about this all day, and I would love to keep talking to you about it in the comments. If you have any big thoughts about what I've said, please share them. Let's keep talking. Okay, bye.